the studio.
In the house, baby.
Let's go, baby. It's been a minute, man, since I've seen you, brother. How's things?
Good, man. More than good, bro.
What have you been working on? How you been making an impact in the world lately?
Man, you know I've been hosting these events for speakers. It's been growing. So much of me wanted to do what I saw. Teach a workshop that's about all the, technical things, the strategic things that go into booking stages consistently to grow a business.
Yeah.
But to position the events around the transformation internally that's required to book those stages, to make that impact, to be the leader that has greater influence is vulnerable for me because it caused me to be different.
We like different around here.
Yeah, it's like I like the sound of it, but the process of it doesn't always feel great.
So you said the word transform. How would you describe the transformation in some of these events that you're doing?
The way that I love what my coach Bucky says is he just goes, man, it's different, not just better.
That hits.
You know
Especially
what I mean?
Someone who's been through one of your events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can get better and improve and pick up some tips, but it's like, will you leave different? A new perspective on self that's like, oh man, I've got to show up in a new way. Like that's so much more valuable for me. And for obviously the guests as well, to be able to walk away different versus just better.
And just so everybody knows, listening to this episode, I went through one of these events, and I would also characterize this as a transformation, but also an expansion. And for me, it was an expansion of heart, emotion, and also some logic.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking you, how do you see the transformation?
Yeah.
Because my transformation was, man, I got to attach some emotion to what I'm doing.
Totally.
I spoke on 28 stages last year, and one speech attached emotion. 27 was logic. And I had that blockage until I spent time with you.
Wow.
And now I'm dialed in even more than ever.
Yeah.
So thank you, brother.
I can't wait to hear it, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
I remember you had that event like right after. You had to reschedule it, but did you tell your story?
Yep.
How'd that go?
It went great. So in that speech, I talked about this scally cap and how I wasn't living in my true self and was worried about what other people thought. And that's how I started that speech off, and I just got real and raw, and it was about branding. So someone talking about branding, sharing a true, honest story of how I wasn't my own brand for X amount of years until recently.
Yeah.
And then when you show up that way, right? All types of vulnerability starts to pour out because I opened my heart to the emotion that I was resisting most.
Oh my God, let's go! Yes.
So, yeah.
Man, I tell my clients all the time, it's not about a speech, it's about a life. It's so much, I understand I got to be a little more emotional. Oh, I need to be a little bit more vulnerable. And they're thinking about a speech, but we're viewing this in terms of a life, because if you're doing that on stage, where are you doing that in your life?
Yes.
And that for me is where speaking has been so transformative for me personally, man. I was cut off from my emotions. I was taught that, vulnerability was weakness. I was trained to suppress my emotion. Real men don't cry. I was spanked for crying, all that stuff.
Yep.
And it created this suppression inside of me. And so when it came time for me to speak on stages, because I had such a desire to make an impact, I started to see that, like, man, there's people that are in this room that I know, I can feel, I can sense, I can reach them, but whatever I'm saying is not connecting with them.
Yep.
I'm saying decent stuff, as so I thought, but it wasn't connecting because I wasn't opening up emotionally. They didn't care what I said. They cared how I said it. They cared if there was a connection. And so the more I started to play that game of like, what happens if I just, tell a personal story? What happens if I talk about something that's a little bit more uncomfortable, but is probably something that many of the people in the audience is facing? And what I saw is that, man, that impact on the audience started to get better. Consequently, all the lack of vulnerability was happening in my marriage, and the same kind of opening up was starting to follow the trend that was happening on stages. So before, when me and my wife used to argue, all I used to do was get angry.
Yep.
I'm mad, F you, like just tripping, breaking stuff. Like, just for me, that was a permissible emotion from a male. But when I started to open up on stages, and now my heart's being more open, and now I'm starting to see that, like, oh, I'm in touch with more emotions than just anger. I have compassion. I have empathy. I have a love that can be expressed in a way that's felt and tangible and verbal. Man, it transformed my marriage. I started saying, I'm sorry. I started to like talk about my feelings being hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And- which was so hard in the beginning, like, oh, I feel so weak.
Yeah.
Like talking to my wife about my emotions. And man, did it open her up.
And it's funny because you're like, ooh, I felt so weak. But yet, how tall are you?
6'5" and a
How
half.
yeah, right? Like we're both 6'5", dude, like 230, right?
I know.
And it's like,
know.
but yet we feel weak because we're expressing emotion and having attachment to the person that we love the most in the world.
Yep.
It's a common feeling and no one talks about it.
Nobody.
Now I have a question for you. So vulnerability, when I first said, oh, I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to share and I'm going to this, it was a strategy based on logic for me.
Mhm.
And once you start opening that diaphragm and that heart, opening to the reality around it, it almost becomes natural, but it's also a muscle you have to work on. Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally. I mean, it's just like anything that's underdeveloped, right? Especially because a lot of people, the, emotional, just use that word, emotional capacity is like suppressed and repressed,
Yep.
right? Like they've suppressed it. They didn't want to think about it. They didn't hold space for how they were feeling. And then it's like, now I don't want to bring it up. If I just, take a lick and keep on ticking type of thing, then I can move my life forward. And what we don't realize is that, the body keeps the score. You suppress stuff, it lives in your cellular memory. Just because you buried it doesn't mean it went away.
Yep. Yep. No, you're 100% correct.
Seriously, I like, just because you buried it doesn't mean that it went away. It's just going to show up in another way at some point, sometime.
Yep. It's going to resurface and you're going to go, I'm out of alignment. What's going on? And for the most part, and I hate to say this, but I think people don't even identify when they're out of alignment.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that come up? Did something change in your life? Was there an event where you're like, I've got to go do this. I've got to go share this.
Multiple events, bro. For me, it's been a constant, and I don't like this part of the story. It's been a constant wrestle with me and God of like, do the thing, me not wanting to do the thing, do the thing, me not wanting to do the thing. Okay, God, I'll do it. Okay, I don't want to do the next level of it, because the moment that you graduate from one level, you just get introduced to the next, and that's the
It's your
infinite
common
ascent.
saying, right? Your new ceiling is your new,
Your,
your old sailing
is
Go
your
ahead.
new floor.
Your old
Yeah.
sailing is your new floor.
Yeah, 100%, man. Got that from originally heard it from Mike Zeller. I don't think he made it up though, but either way, man, your old ceiling's your new floor, and it's like, cool, congratulations. I've been trying to get there. I've been trying to, get to consistent whatever month. So I've been trying to like get to this consistent place within myself, and then I get there, and then it's like, okay, now that's the norm.
Yeah.
Now what's the next level? And that's good. That's the beauty of life. So every time that has
It reminds
happened,
me of that. What's that Meek Mill song? There's levels to this
there's
shit.
levels. There's levels to this. There's levels to this. It's levels.
Yep.
It's true, man. And honestly, man, part of what, the work that I've been in personally is getting used to that. Because as much as that has happened and happened and happened, and yeah, I've faced it, I had a lot of success. Don't get me wrong, I haven't cowered to it for too long to where I sabotage completely.
Yep.
But man, what could happen if the yes was immediate? What could happen if, there wasn't so much of a wrestle with the next version of myself that's looking to emerge?
How do you navigate that though? How do you focus on that? How do you work through that?
Well, I think there's a human way, and I think there's a way that has more divine ease. I think, humanly, I run, I suppress, I avoid, I fill my calendar with busyness to say, well, I'm so busy speaking on stages that I can't, rewrite my next book. Or I'm so busy delivering the speeches that I'm currently, booked for, that I don't have time to work on the next evolution of the speech, whatever that is. And it's just another way to avoid the growth. Versus the divine ease can happen when I'm like, okay, I acknowledge that the resistance is here. I know where it comes from. It's the little boy Darryll who was given too much responsibility when he was young. And now I have a weird relationship with this responsibility. Take a deep breath, go out in nature, connect with God, love myself, do some crying if I need to cry, don't suppress the emotion, and ultimately reduce the time from invitation from the divine and response from the human.
Whew, it's powerful. Say that one more time.
The response time from the invitation from God and the response from the human. If we can reduce that time frame, how much faster could our world collectively progress?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
so many people have the invitation from divine, but they are stagnant in the human response to that invitation. They're thinking about it, praying about it. You know, I pastored for 7 years.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I
I knew
pastored.
you were around church. I didn't know
Yeah,
you
I
pastor.
pastored. So I wasn't lead pastor. I was executive pastor of outreach or some type of. Majority it was more around outreach. I was a campus like pastor of a satellite church for 2 years, but
Wow.
ultimately, one of the things that was always so frustrating about that is we were kind of more charismatic in faith, so we pray for people at the altar a lot, and people would come up for prayer requests, and so many times God would say specific things to them, like do this. It was so clear, and I was like, man, I want some of that clarity. Like I ask God for stuff, and it's abstract. It's like He told Abraham, go to a land that
Let me
I'll
get a little
show
of
you,
that.
and I'm like, north, south, east, west, which way do I go? And so I get frustrated because I'm like, they almost want that clarity, but they'll get specific words. Write this book, launch your business. It's your season to step out, to go this, to transition this job, whatever. And they'll cry, they'll break down, some will shout, some will take off running, some will just fall prostrate on the floor. 3 weeks later, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm praying for clarity.
Goosebumps,
I
dude. Because
remember
I know so
asking.
many people that have gone through that, and I'm like, one foot in front of the other, small steps. Keep going. Sorry.
No, this is good. I remember asking one of my mentors, are you seeking clarity or are you avoiding? Are you seeking clarity or are you avoiding?
They can be confused pretty easily.
So confused. And again, that's a big part of self-awareness, because if you think that you're looking for clarity when you're in avoidance, you're in an illusion.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're going left when everybody wants you to go right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what we can tell ourselves, because if I'm confused and if I'm asking for clarity, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not in disobedience or I'm not in non-cooperation. I'm not doing anything quote unquote wrong, but I've just justified a way to stay misaligned.
I also think that the power of inaction in that situation is actually the mistake,
Yeah, I agree.
right? And inaction hurts more than failed action, I would say,
Oh,
especially when you
100%.
have some type of clarity.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And again, man, like I'm human. I do that. I literally the book that I wrote, it took me 3 years to publish it. And not because I was working every day on it, but because I was in that divine invitation, human response. Okay, I'll try it now. It got a little too difficult, or I hit some insecurity blocks. And so rather than work through them, breathe through them, move through them, work through them, and continue the path, I was like, this ain't for me. I'm going to act like I didn't hear it. And I'm going to ask God, show me what's next.
When you know what's next.
I know what's next.
Yeah.
It's the same thing you told me last time. My mentor told me whenever God gets silent, keep doing the last thing that He told you to do.
It's powerful. It's
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, when people feel that restriction or resistance, and I'd love your opinion on this. They feel that restriction or resistance, and then they work through some things, and then they seek advice, and then they pray, and whatever they do on a daily basis, weekly basis, when they're trying to figure something out, and then some time goes by and it's the same exact thing shows up again, and they're like, oh, I got it now. And then they take the action. And I'm someone that I just did this. The book on relationships was something I wanted to write a year ago. And no. And now I'm right back in the same spot with an outline, ready to rock, feeling in the biggest flow state I've had in a long time.
Let's go.
But it was identified to me and I resisted it and I didn't do it. And it comes back to the same situation where it's like, just because it feels a little different because I've had some growth is why I'm stepping into it. But all that stuff was still available a year ago.
Yeah.
I just was neglecting it because of
Yeah.
my own shit, because of my
Yeah.
own, "Oh, I don't know where to go and I need to seek more guidance." You don't need to seek more guidance. You have the answers. It is
Yes.
available.
Yes.
And it's a tough thing to navigate, but I always find myself in the same situation where I'm like, "Man, I already knew this.
Yeah.
I already knew this, dude.
Yeah.
Why didn't I just do
Yep. Yep.
it?"
100%.
And it's not ego or arrogance because I'm going, "Ah, dang, you did it again," right? Like
Yeah.
it's not like I already knew this and I don't need to hear this or seek advice. It was just kind of like those
Mhm.
answers were already there.
Mhm.
You find yourself doing that sometimes?
Always. And there is grace. The window of opportunity usually always comes around again. For me, I got a couple that are on 1 year cycles that always come again. Then I got a couple that are on like feel like 3 year cycles where it's like if I miss this door or this window of opportunity, then about 3 years I'll get a similar one. So I've lived long enough to kind of see those patterns play out in my life. And so one of the incentives I have is like, and I got this quote from another speaker, can't remember who, but essentially seize the opportunity of a lifetime within the lifetime of the opportunity.
Ooh, I like that.
And it's so important because when it comes, it's like you got that window. Here's the lifetime of the opportunity. It's like seize it before it closes, and then you gotta wait X amount of years because there's no telling that if you'll make it to tomorrow. There's no telling if you'll make it to next year. There's no telling if you'll be in the same place, have the same health, have the same level of youthfulness or anything like that. And so, man, seize it while it's hot because if it's coming to you, it's because you're ready for it.
It's powerful.
Yeah,
It's powerful.
yeah,
All right, back into speaking.
yes,
So tell me a little bit about why you like to speak so much. You're everywhere, man. I seen you over here, East
yeah,
Coast, West Coast, South, working with this
yeah.
speaker, standing on this TEDx stage,
Hmm.
doing some stuff locally recently. Like, why
Yeah.
do you love speaking?
Man, there's probably so much we can get into around that. The first thing that comes to mind, which is so weird that this came up because I've never said this on an interview before. It's not super deep, but I grew up playing sports a lot. And so I would play a lot of AAU basketball in the summers, and it was tons of travel. I was always traveling all over the place, meeting new people. I played against Michael Jordan's son. I played against Brandon Jennings. I played against a lot of professional athletes. Um, and I think I built into my programming to be in that energy of like I'm going here, I'm connecting with this person, I'm with the best in the world over here, I'm like playing against the best in the world over here, and I think I'm just made that way. Like I like to be here and there and passing business to you and soaking it in for myself and
I
like
feel that,
all that
bro.
stuff is
I
just my
feel that.
energy, like my energy likes to move that way. So speaking gives me the ability to do that. It's like that if you want it to be. So that's
It's
a
a rush.
yeah. So that came to me, man. It's just like it gives me the travel, the variety, and then some of the divine uh, suspense of like I don't know who I'm gonna meet, I don't know what's gonna come out my mouth, but I know it's gonna be divine.
Yeah.
And so I do it for those reasons, and then obviously, man, to make an impact because I feel called, because I've been through a lot of pain in my life that I don't want other people to go through. Because there was times where I was searching and searching and searching and searching for answers, and I could not find it. And so I would hate for someone to be in a position where they're looking, they're trying, they're not being victims to their circumstances. They want out, they're willing to do something about it, but they can't find that person who's been in that situation. They can't find that person whose story can be like, you're not alone. They can't find that blueprint who's like, hey, have you thought about this? And I want to be that for other people because in some ways, I'm being the help that I didn't have, and here's the part that I've been focusing on lately is in some ways I'm being the help that I had
Yes.
because I'll never forget the time I heard Bishop Jakes talk about how everyone wanted him to be the next Billy Graham preacher, but yet he wanted to produce movies and he wanted to run, businesses and have multiple of them. And that you can't put me in a box. You can call me a preacher, but you can't make that be my only thing that I do. He said I was doing business before I became a preacher.
Yeah.
And like hearing him go on that was like so freeing for me in that season because I was so torn between this part of me that felt called to quote unquote ministry and this part of me that felt called to business. And so hearing that YouTube video, that, 30-minute message was so transformative for my life. It set me on a new trajectory. It opened up my paradigm of thought. And man, if I could be that for other people, wow,
It's magical.
it's a blessing.
It's magical.
Yeah.
So you said you love the rush, you love the traveling.
Yeah.
You've got four kids?
4 kids.
Four
baby.
kids,
Yes.
wife, beautiful children.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that lifestyle, man?
Yes. Man, through
Because it's impressive, bro. I see you going, and I see the van full of kids, and we were
Yeah.
on a call, and you're in the passenger seat, the kids in the back, the wife's
going,
driving.
baby. They might hop on the live stream. One of my homegirls will come do this podcast, bro. She would crush it. My daughter, my oldest one, spoke on stage with me for the first time last year. It was so epic.
Describe that moment.
Well, there was two things. The magic of the moment was that here's a 9-year-old girl. And I told my story about when I was 9, feeling called to speak, having this vision, seeing myself in front of a lot of audience. And my reaction to the calling was to shrink. I didn't feel worthy, didn't feel capable, had so much insecurity because I was teased when I was younger. And all of that happened between, it started, the calling was at the age of 9. And then by the time I was 12, I kind of completely started to use my life for destruction, because I, got tired of being picked on, got tired of being called a church boy, got tired of not being invited to, being included. And so I started to change everything about myself. And so what was so special about that moment was that my daughter was 9. And at the age where I was shutting down, shrinking, compromising, she was opening, expanding, expressing.
I just gotta let that one sit. I got whole body chills on that one, brother. So how was it? Could you even keep your emotions, bro? I'm about to tear up. I'm putting myself in that situation to live through the joy that I can only imagine you felt, bro.
Yeah, I was so overwhelmed with emotion, because there was part of me that was so proud of her for being real. She didn't do the kid thing where she was like, "Hi, I'm Ava," and shrank away. And she also didn't try to overcompensate and say a bunch of stuff. She just said what was on her heart. And it was timely for the room. I was like, that was it. That was not you, that was God, right?
Yeah.
She tapped in.
Yeah, she tapped in.
So I was so proud of her. And I was so proud of me.
I mean, you're giving the opportunity that you didn't have and suppressed.
I lived a life to where my daughter feels comfortable doing that right beside me.
And that's the growth that you've experienced.
That's the growth. That's the grace of God. That's the life I have. That's the mentors I've had. But man, that's what it's about. When I say it's not about a speech, it's about a life. It's about how I'm living. It's about the legacy that I'm leaving. It's about the memory. Even speaking, that's my paradigm around it. What are we but a story? You think about Jesus. You never met him in person. He's a story. You think about Martin Luther King Jr. You never met him in person. He's a story. You think
evolution.
about Gandhi. He's a story. You think about anybody that they're a story. You never met them, but yet their legacy lives on. The things that they cared about lives on through the power of their story.
Stories are the evolution. Of the life we're in today, right?
Yeah.
It literally goes story to story, growth to growth,
yes,
mistake to mistake,
yes.
however you want to define it.
Yeah.
And we all know we've made a lot of mistakes personally, and
totally, man, you made me cry, bro. Jeez. All right, we're back.
We're back, man. I was tearing up, brother.
Yeah,
because I see it, and it's. You just telling that story has me thinking futuristically, has me thinking, how do I give the life to my daughter that I didn't have or was suppressed in a way similar to yours, right? We have a similar story of you've got to be that hold it all in, and that tough guy, and you're a wuss and you're a baby. That's the same stuff that I grew up in.
Yeah.
living in Boston, that's the culture.
Mm.
And it's not every culture. And I'm not saying that living in Boston was a bad thing, because it made me who I was and allowed me to grow and learn from that.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is when you're a young cat hanging out with the older guys, and that's kind of what you get pushed into, right? And it's like, you can't cry, you fall down, you get beat up, and it all reflects to those emotions that are tied to it.
Totally, bro.
And you're changing the game for your children and your family.
100%, man.
What did your wife think? Was she there, or?
No, she wasn't there. She was probably home with the kids or something. But all the same emotions.
I was gonna say,
she was equally as proud, and her family was, I guess, in some ways healthier. I mean, every family has their thing, right?
Of course.
And so, I mean, but she had mom and dad in the same house, that type of thing. But still, man, they didn't live a life of expression and the ways that we are describing. And so, man, she was just like blown away for all the same reasons. And we're so proud, man. And she helped. We did exercises. She helped with that stuff too. And then obviously just to watch me and then to hear me speak and stuff. And she helped me with my speech because I don't usually do younger audiences. And so that was K through 12. So it was, K through 12.
Yeah.
So I was good with high school students, but I wasn't good with the younger dude. We did like 3 segments. And so she helped me shape my words for the younger audience. I was like, I don't know what to say with it. I'm like, what should I say? And I was asking her, like, what are your friends struggling with? How do I talk to them? And she kind of helped me with that. There's one thing I want to touch on though, because you asked about the lifestyle and being able to speak and travel. And there's a lot of people who like, they were like, hey, I would travel more, but I got kids. I'm not trying to be away from my family, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there's several things that help us. One that I really want to emphasize that we don't hear it talked about a lot is this principle of like calling and not, let me say it through a positive lens. Being really mindful and aware of your kids' gifts, their calls, and what you see unfolding in their life. Okay, it's a really big point because so much of when we would do this type of like, we're speaking, sometimes they're traveling with us, we got to pull them out of school or whatever, like this moving and grooving, is like we felt guilty, like we were not giving our kids a safe, solid, stable life, right? And especially if we were like at an event all day and like they're running around and they're tired and like we got to keep like giving them a tablet or like giving them snacks galore, and it's just like, man, this is not like good parenting.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when my mentors came up to me. It was like, it was specifically, we were out all day church event. We had worked it, and I think it was like the multiple day, and we were feeling bad, man. It's like the second and third day, kids are there, like this is a terrible life for them, as we perceived it to be. And my pastor comes and he goes, Darryll, did they ever complain to you? I said no. He said, did you ask them about their experience? I said no. And so once I did, they were having a blast. They were fun. And he was like, hey man, be mindful that you're not projecting a fear onto your kids. Ooh. Because perhaps God is using your life to develop your children in ways that you didn't know that they needed to be developed.
Wow.
Lo and behold, that was 6-7 years ago. And now to see like, oh snaps, like they understand entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
They understand that this is available. In fact, my oldest kid was just like, or now they kind of all say, they're kind of all like smart now, but they listen to the things that we teach. They've been around and exposed long enough. Their mindset is like that. Like they use it against us. They get stuff from us using the stuff that we teach.
Yep.
My daughter was, when she turned 8, on her 8th birthday, she said, hey, I want you to start planning right now for my 9th birthday. She was going to turn 9th on January 9th. So it was like 9 on the 9th. She's like, I want a party bus. I want my friends to get professional photos. I want hair and makeup. And then there was like 2 more things that she wanted. And she was like, and you have a year to prepare, so there's no excuse.
Oh man, I got not even a 1.5-year-old yet, and I'm in for it, ain't I, bro?
So get this part. It doesn't stop there. So I'm like, this girl is tripping. She needs a spanking. She's tripping. And I'm like, no, okay, that's cute, sweetie, but it's a birthday and that's a little extreme, and I don't know, a little whatever I was saying, like no way. And she's like, I thought you said if we put our mind to anything that we can achieve it. 8. 8 years old.
That's a gift in itself, man.
8 years old.
Yeah. It's a
So
gift in itself.
so there was a really pivotal season of accepting that our kids are different, and they are likely, not forcefully, they're still young, but they're likely going to be entrepreneurs, and so this is helping them. And so, man, they already, I don't know if I should say this, but they already missed too many days of school in the system, but we got a little thing worked out. And their peers respect them and stuff like that. And they're starting to see the difference like of what they get, and they get entrepreneur freedom.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh man, my friends can't go anywhere, but we're going to Grand Canyon, we're going to California, we're going to all these places, and they're like just at school every single day, all day.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that if that's their call. But to me, there's an opportunity if it's if they've called to something different.
Yeah.
If there's something else to be developed within them, and that's what's happening. So that's a big piece, is looking at, man, is, you know, are my kids designed to be 9 to 5? Is the school environment what's best for them? Or is there a world education I can give them through bringing them within my business activities more often, more frequently, even if I still leave them in school? Like, you know, our kids are still in school. So that's a big part of being able to have a speaking business with young kids, is because we're not stuck or limited by a paradigm that they have to be in school 5 days a week, or that we have to work 9 to 5 and be done by 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like, it's very free flowing. Okay. Like, we might connect deeply at 2 and I might work till 10. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it gives us more of lifestyle freedom. The other thing is just learning the business model, like literally learning how to, like, where's the stages? We teach people 15 places to find paid speaking engagements. And it was like, that was a big deal. I was like, where are they at? You know, Googling speaking opportunities. And it's like, I only could do that so much. I had to find other areas and other ways to attract it. And once I found that, and then went on stages and spoke enough, it's like, okay, now like I can have enough clout and consistency within my brand and my speaking, where, you know, I say, you know, I can almost pull up in about, you know, a lot of cities and have an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's that had to learn the business side of it to be able to command, you know, stages in a way that was aligned for the lifestyle that I desired. So that I wasn't on the road every single day or multiple times a week even, but I was on the road when I wanted to be, where I wanted to be. And so learning the business side, how to reach out to stages, actually going out, doing a great job. You know how it is, like being a great person, having great character, delivering great results, so that you have, you know, referrals and trust and a good name.
Yep.
And I believe that, you know, according to scripture, like, you know, your name is a form of currency. It's actually the highest form, right? Like you should be able to get more done by saying Jim than you can by being like Moolah.
Yeah, you're talking to the guy who talks about relationships. I mean, that is the currency.
It is.
And I live by your word is bond.
Yes.
Right? Like, we can go old school with it.
Old school, baby.
I heard it from Nas back in the day, right? But like, the reality of it is, and that goes back to that Boston culture, right? We were talking about how I said I didn't want it to be this all negative, because when you grow up like that and word is bond, and you don't do something you say, or you don't keep a promise, back in the day, you get the shit kicked out of you.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the best opportunity for me, but what it taught me was to keep that word.
Yep.
And I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of things that I've wanted to do and was overwhelmed or overbooked or messed up right? Like, I'm a human. I make a ton of mistakes.
Yeah.
But to have that philosophy at the forefront of how I enact and how I move and how I engage, it's extremely important to me.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, dude, it's just so cool to watch what you do with your fam and how you're bopping around and all over the place. And I just admire it, man. It's a lifestyle that's unique, but it's a lifestyle that you're already seeing the fruitfulness from your children experiencing it. And I think that's the coolest part, is you're not only growing, but they're growing with you, and they're alongside you. You know, I got criticized recently. I don't know if you heard about this, but I got criticized because I did a video saying my 1.5-year-old, well, she's not even 1.5, she's 15 months. Tomorrow, 2 days from now, she has been to 14 states before 1 years old.
Oh, wow.
Someone was like, "Oh, you know, doesn't that mess her up? And the airplanes and this and that." And it was just like, no, she probably won't remember this, but the memories and the photos and the videos and the experiences and this
Yeah.
pool and that water slide at this hotel and
Yeah.
this view and she tried this food, right? Like
Yeah.
what it is to me is it's culture.
Yep.
And and anybody who says you can't travel with a baby, you're creating your own limiting beliefs.
Yep.
And when going into, I like to travel, I'm always bopping around.
Yeah.
Going into that, I was like, oh, we got to figure this out. It's going to be really hard. I had a
Mhm.
limiting belief based on what other people told me.
Same thing I was telling you earlier.
It's not that
Yeah.
hard. It
No.
really is not that
Yeah.
hard.
Yep.
Yeah, did we fuck up and not time it right? And she didn't sleep and she
Yeah.
was up and right? Or did I pick a really terrible flight that was super early and she was cranky so she couldn't get back to sleep? We've done that. But
Yeah.
now it's like fluid,
Yeah.
right? Like it just moves, it just happens. And I would have never had those experiences personally, and I would have never shared those experiences with my daughter if I let those limiting beliefs not allow me to step foot on that plane or not take that gig or not travel there.
Yeah.
And to anybody listening, I'm going to push you to try it before you knock it,
Yeah.
right? Don't just read the book of the cover, get in a couple chapters.
Yes.
Peel back the banana and see what's edible inside and what you could potentially enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm so pro with that because it was a limiting belief in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and it was completely fine, and I enjoy it. I love the fact that I get to take a selfie with her, and we get to experience this water slide or this or that, and it's creating memories, and that's what I live for. How can I use my resources to
Yes.
create memorable experiences with my family?
Yes.
And work is a resource for me. It's
Yeah.
not something I have to do. It's not something I need to get up and be miserable about. It's a resource. So let's share it.
100%.
Let's share it with the fam.
Yes.
Let's go. Back to speaking, back
Yeah.
to you teaching. Do
Yeah.
you have anybody that you've worked with? And you don't need to share the name, but like talk to us about some of these freaking magical transformations you've had with some of your clients.
Oh,
You have an event.
man.
I engage with some folks. I hear how great it was. I come to one. I experience it. Like, what's one story you can share with us of how you've changed someone's life regarding speaking?
Oh my God, dude. I don't know. There's so many. Like what's relevant? What's I don't know. I can tell you the two that are most pressing right now. I've got so many, man. You know, I didn't like chasing and marketing. I just hated the feeling of like I've got to do, 90 days of consistent posting every day to get a client. It just was so draining for me. I don't like being a slave to content. And so I knew that in order for me to build the business that I wanted to build, I had to provide amazing results to be able to get referrals and renewals. So like, man, I've got so many of those stories. The one
Did
that
you
comes,
just hear that, everybody? A successful speaker, coach, trainer, transformation, doesn't want to market, and that feels gross, but yet has an amazing business, changing lives, showing up for his clients, had an amazing month a couple months ago. Me and him talked offline.
yeah,
Let's hear it, man.
yeah,
So let's
yeah,
talk about it.
yeah. No, no, I
Because there's a
appreciate that.
million people out there
It
that feel the
is.
same way as you and won't take the step in front of the other one to move
Oh,
forward.
no, dude, we could all. I mean, that's a whole can of worms. We gotta be careful opening because, like, people see me now and they have no clue where I started. They don't know that I was so insecure to speak in front of people that I would fake like I had to go to the bathroom during icebreakers so that I didn't have to talk in front of people. They didn't know that I wrote my speech out word for word, read it into a recorder, and pressed play on the recorder when I was giving my speech to literally repeat what the recording was saying. They didn't know that I was filled with shame and I looked down at the floor the entire engagement and mumbled for 80% of the speech. They didn't know that I had to overcome that because of so much insecurity, because of all the stuff that I've been through. They just look at me now and go, "Oh, is he able to communicate in that way?" And they don't understand, like, yo, I couldn't even put two sentences together. Like, I don't meet a lot of people worse than where I started. Period. Um, and I've come so far. So it's a really big piece because some people think that they are not called to this because they have those feelings about speaking. Like, I don't desire to be in the spotlight, or I have insecurities, or I don't feel like alive or connected when I do that. Well, of course you don't, because you suck at it, because your insecurity is in the way of the divine flow of God, right? Like, if this is you and like divine is trying to flow fully through you, like your insecurity, your doubts, your perceptions are filtering that message that's trying to come through,
Yep.
right? So it's a big conversation. So anybody watching that's just like, hey man, like I know that I kind of have this calling to speak, but I don't enjoy it. I hate it. I get sweaty. I get nervous. I can't. I got ADHD. I got this. I got that. Like, just know that your dysfunctions don't disqualify you from your destiny. Like, just because you have weaknesses doesn't mean that you can't still be a powerful communicator and develop your own style or way of communicating in a way that's aligned, that protects your weaknesses. Like, I tell people all the time on stage, like, hey, I have ADHD. Dude, can you help me if I forget my train of thought? And just that little thing gives me the freedom to just do my thing. And most times I don't forget it. I'm just flowing. But if I do, now I'm not like, oh, I don't deserve, I'm not supposed to be up here. I'm not called to this. I should quit. I'm like, dude, what was I talking about?
Yeah, I got off track. This brain's going, baby.
And it's so easy. And you'd be surprised the number of people when they hear me say that, they're like, oh, dude, I have ADHD too. I didn't know that I could. Oh man, I want to now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Broke that barrier.
A weakness, a dysfunction was going to keep you from your divine calling and your purpose and helping the people that only you on this planet can help. Oh, no way. We can get over insecurity. We can get over a weakness. We can get over anxiety.
Yeah.
We can get over those things. As long as there's willingness, there's always a way. So there's that, man. Recent examples, man. Just had a woman who works for an oil and gas company, high level up there, great salary, all the things, and left her job to do this full time.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
And I'm like, oh, snaps. Now she's been working with me for a year and that type of thing. So yeah, she's had, some, but she's not making what she's making corporately.
No.
And even then, to lose that with what she's been making is still a step. And so like that, I believe in this work enough that I'll leave something so cushy, so in the bag to do this. To me, like, that's some Stinson energy, baby.
Burn the boats.
Like, burn the boats, leave the comfort, like, do the thing that you're called to do, regardless of the fear, regardless of the insecurity, regardless of what the bank account says. Like, we don't let cash or comfort determine our calling. We actually bring the cash and everything about ourselves into the calling. We surrender it all. Like, we don't let any barriers of our comfort or any barriers of the money that we don't have keep us from answering the call that's on our life. And so, man, the fact that she's doing that is so powerful, because I know so many people who are stuck to what I call golden handcuffs, right? It's called salary, benefits, and insurance.
I don't know how y'all are feeling, but I want to go run through a fucking wall after you just said that. Wow.
It's golden handcuffs.
You got me going, dude.
Right? Like, I'm cuffed to it, and I know that they're cuffed, and I don't want to be cuffed, but at least they gold. At least I got insurance.
That's it.
At least I got benefits. At least I know that I got paid time off.
I was going to say vacation time.
Well, how about the ability to take time off anytime you want to take time off, instead of having to wait till you got to put requests to when you want to take time off? How about nobody can make you do anything, tell you when to show up, when to wake up, who to talk to, what to charge? They can't put limits. How about when you work harder, you can actually get paid more, and you don't have to like work 90 hours for a 40 hour per week salary? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I say salary is code word for like, we're going to like overwork you and underpay you. Seriously. And so that comes up for me because she made that decision. And to me, the most powerful thing that she's doing is making that decision in a way that's congruent with her story. Like she's not going to market as like the former, oil and gas. I can't say the name of the company. The
Yeah.
former oil and gas executive who's just gonna like teach you about the days at the company.
Yeah.
Like so many people could do that. No, she's talking about the fact that her father was very aggressive and she never thought she was good enough for him. And so, now she's coming out talking about, how those insecurities from her childhood affected her career fulfillment. And now she's helping other people find the fulfillment by working through their internal traumas.
It's powerful.
It's like she's stepping into some deep spiritual work, a calling, not just a career. And so that's powerful to me for her to believe in me and trust me enough to guide her on that new chapter and season. And then also to like renew her contract and like renew a contract that's not cheap when she's leaving, multiple six figures of revenue.
Yeah. She believes in it.
She believes in it. And it's worked for her enough to where it's not totally blind. And that's beautiful. So man, that comes up for me, and we can go more if you want, but like that's one that's top of mind because she just put that in last Friday.
Let's go, let's go.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah,
I love
man.
it.
Yeah.
Man, changing lives.
Thank you.
Pushing people to step into those divine doorways.
Yeah, totally.
I love that. I love that when you said that at the event.
Yeah,
it was big time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up here in a second, but let's talk about your book.
Yeah.
I know that we had a chat offline. I thought you relaunched it. You changed some things, but there's a story behind that.
Yep.
And I want to hear about it.
Cool. I can give that to you. So I published a book. I got the old copy here. I didn't bring the new copy. Poor move. We'll edit it in maybe. Right here, baby. It's white. And it's got soccer cleats hanging from the word sports on the title, Who Am I After Sports? I wrote this book because I was an athlete, supposed to play at the next level, got hurt, injured, and attempted suicide because my career, couldn't advance to being professional. That's where I found Christ. That's where I started to learn about mental health and the importance of prioritizing the internal work. And I started to build my life from the inside out. And so I wrote this book because I noticed that so many other people were struggling with transition, but there wasn't a lot of people publicly having that conversation. It's totally different now. So I published this book 3.5 years ago. So this is pre-pandemic. So, it was more so groundbreaking at the time, and then pandemic hit, and then it was like the conversation of the year.
Yeah.
Of all these sports teams that shut down, canceled their seasons, people not getting the opportunity to play in college, people not getting the opportunity to play at a pro level because they literally cut the MLB feeder league down to like 5 versus 15, opportunities. And so it was so helpful. So I wrote this book to help people, athletes in transition, and work through them of how I was able to find a career and a life that fulfilled me more than my, sports career did.
I was going to say, yeah.
Because a lot of athletes, it's like their sports days are their glory days, which means everything else is downhill from there. And for me, I was like, that's no way to live. I don't want to live downhill.
Yeah.
For me, it's glory to glory, faith to faith, accomplishment to
Let's
accomplishment.
go this way.
It's not like, back in the
or
day.
more like this, right?
Yeah.
But let's trend that way.
Let's trend up with the roller coaster.
It's never
100%.
that, but yeah.
And so, again, had all this insecurity, got teased for having a gap, got teased for being dark, got teased for being a black kid that talks and acts white. So I had all this insecurity around my image, around my voice, my expression. And so when it came time to publish a book, I figured that I would do something safe. So I had 99 designs, design the cover. And so you have a bunch of people that submit their best design and you pick out of that and you do voting and all that stuff. And I had this cover that had my face on it where I was wearing half business uniform and half football uniform. And I was like, that's the one. That's what the message I'm trying to send. Who am I? I was torn between I'm no longer an athlete. I'm called to business, but I don't want to wear a suit and tie.
But you can't wear the shoulder pads.
You know what I mean? And so there was all this who am I? Who am I? Who am I? So I was like, that's the image. But I didn't choose it because subconsciously, I didn't think that I was successful enough, credible enough, worthy enough, valuable enough to be on the front cover of a book. And I told myself that that's very egotistical of me. to put my face on a book and make it all about me. That's so egotistical.
So you chose cleats.
So I chose cleats because soccer is the world's largest sport. So there's more people to market to. And there's no face on the cover, so there's no conflict of interest. And I compromised
Because you were dark.
because I was dark.
And is that why you chose the white book cover?
Maybe subconsciously, not intentionally though. I just chose white because it was the better color. Yeah.
Crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
But here's the thing. Here's what I want people to hear.
But it's not crazy.
Well, here's the
like
thing.
that's
right?
the reality. It's
this
not
book,
crazy.
This book, bestseller, Amazon #1 for at least a couple of days.
yeah.
I was beating Tom Brady in sales when he just released his book. So it wasn't like his had been on the shelf for like 2 years and then mine came out. I was like, no, he was promoting his, I was promoting mine. I was like ranking. I was like, hey, I'm ranking with Tom Brady, baby. Let's go. I got the screenshots to
Let's
prove
go.
It, you know?
Let's
now
go.
The next day he like sold 100,000 copies.
Yeah.
More than me, but still. It's sold a lot of copies, bestseller, has helped people at all types of levels, it's been featured in NCAA's, blogs and stuff like that. It's helped tons of colleges with their transition curriculum, been talks around the NFLPA, all this stuff, right? So it's made a lot of impact, even though I compromised. And here's the thing that I want people to know. It's just because you're successful doesn't mean you're not compromising. Just because you're a bestseller don't mean you're not misaligned. Just because you know language around alignment don't mean you ain't misaligned. Just because you know language about consciousness doesn't mean that you're operating from a high level of consciousness.
Yep.
And that's what I did. I published it. It made a lot of impact. It did a lot of good. But deep down, I was compromised. And I wasn't in my fullest expression. And it took me 3 years of growth to get to a point internally where I could have enough confidence and courage to publish the cover that had my face on it.
Wow.
Confidence, courage, and humility.
Wow.
Because where I thought it was ego to put on the book, it was actually ego that kept me from putting my face on the book. So I tried to trick myself and say, your face on the book was egotistical, when in reality, that was the best thing to serve that work. That was the best thing to advance that message. That was the best cover to move that forward.
To attract the right people.
Best thing.
In order to read the book.
I told myself it wasn't, and
so
I made it about me and my comfort and how people perceived me versus what was best for the material. Period. So I came out, I re-released it, I slapped a new cover on it, I'm still gonna update the interior this summer. But right now, the new cover is out, it's out there, that thing's popping.
It looks good, bro. It looks good.
And it does something to me because now I didn't even know how much. Like for 3 years, bro, I sat there with this book behind me on Zoom and I never noticed that I felt incongruent. I was numb to it. It was outside of my awareness. And my mentor one day was like, why do you have soccer cleats on your book? And I was like, y'all nitpick about everything. I don't know. It's just this, I don't know. And I'm like, don't go there.
Y'all nitpick about everything, yeah.
And then I showed him the cover. Dude, why didn't you publish that? Oh, because he.
Yep.
That's crazy to me, man. And so, to me, the question is like, where in our lives are we doing that?
And in how many?
Where are we presenting a certain image, and because it's getting likes and shares and clicks and all the things that we're like, okay, cool, it's congruent. Okay, cool, it's working. When in reality, we're using the success as a way to hide.
It's bullshit. You're lying to yourself.
Lying to yourself.
Not anybody else, just yourself. Because you're the only one that knows.
And that's the tricky part.
And that's the hardest part because you can suppress that.
Yep.
You cannot talk about it. You can stick it at the bottom of the bookshelf.
Yep.
Shit, you can put it under the bookshelf if you want.
And nobody knows.
And no one needs to know but you. But then where does that show up in a daily, weekly, monthly, annually, marriage, business, friendship, right? Because that level of non-congruency is still there. That resistance is still there.
100%.
Man, that's powerful. The guy who speaks all over the world, does TEDx's left and right, hosts TEDx, teaches all these amazing speakers. And by the way, I've talked to several people you've worked with. I've told you that. Yeah. The feedback is exactly what he's talking about. There is transformation. There is expansion. Mm-hmm. And for you to share that story with us today, I think is just magical in itself because you're breaking down the BS imagery and telling the truth. Yeah. And the truth is what serves at the highest level.
Well, totally. And I'm positioning my work around something different. So yeah, like, yeah, could I tell you stories about people who have booked, $18,000 worth of gigs in 2 days? Can I tell you about people who went from having no gigs on their calendar or a bunch of stuff where they can't get paid? They're just free, 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 free. And then now they're paid, or speak to sell, speak to sell, speak to sell, speak to sell. I can tell you all that stuff, but that's not the position. I'm not trying to be Pete Vargas. Like I'm trying to use stages, not trying to, I am using stages as a way to transform a life.
Yes. Yes.
Does that make sense? Like, it's not positioned around like, go book a bunch of gigs and be a paid speaker. Like, that's great. And if that's an endeavor, and like, yeah, some people like in my, coaching program want to do that, but this is about the life. This is about how you're showing up. This is how you advancing a divine mission. It's not just about booking a gig.
It's powerful.
So that's what you're about, a divine mission. And you have a calling to speak. You need the system. You need the support. You need to know what parts of your stories to go into and what parts is like maybe not for the stage. And like, how do I do that and build it in a way that's aligned with the lifestyle that I desire? That's what we about.
Let's go. Let's go. I love it. I love it. All right, last question for you. And I think I already know the answer based on this.
It's going to be something super deep, ain't it?
What is impact to you? We know how you show up in the world and provide it, right? We just heard this for the last, we've been going for almost an hour.
Let's go.
But how do you define it? What does it mean to you?
I try to measure it by how I show up every day. I just got asked this question like literally yesterday on an iHeartRadio interview, and I talked to them about how I wrote my eulogy as if my wife was reading it. And she was saying all this good stuff about how I live my life, about how I serve my family, about how I grew our business and all this stuff. And I was like, in order for that eulogy to be true when I die, I have to live out that every single day. So impact to me is like, that's what I'm thinking of. It's like, hey, am I living in a way that's congruent with the eulogy I wrote? And I know that seems kind of morbid, but only when one's perception is that life ends at death. I don't feel like it does.
I was just going to say.
And so, that's a big part of what comes to my mind when I think about impact. The other thing is what people say, right? Because I think sometimes people, I hear the word impact thrown out like a buzzword, and they can like, I'll make an impact, or it's all about the impact over income, like all those types of things. You got t-shirts and hats.
Yeah.
But they're not making impact. To me, the definition of impact is different. Somebody's life is being changed or be made better because of a direct or indirect influence from you. That's impact. And there's a measurable part of that, like people, testimonials, some of the clients of mine that you've talked to, there's measurables of that. But then there's the immeasurable, like the clients that you talk to, for example, the people that they're impacting. I don't know. I mean, I hear some stories, but I don't hear all of them. And it's like the work is so much beyond me. And that's the part where this season I'm looking to surrender more to that work and go, it's okay. As big as it wants to get, as far as it wants to go, I will follow.
I'm here for it.
I'm here for it.
Surrender to the flow of life.
Yep.
Man, powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate you spending some time today.
Likewise, man.